If you're trying to hire a sales rep and you keep ending up with people who sound good in interviews but don't actually perform, this video is for you. So in this video, I'm going to break down exactly how I hire killer sales reps for coaching and consulting businesses. Not based on their resumes, not based on their high ticket experience, but based on what actually predicts performance once they're on call. This is the same framework I've used across multiple 7- and 8-figure offers to build sales teams that are predictable, coachable, and scalable. If you want sales reps that actually make you money, let's dive right into it. This video is going to be to show you how to hire a killer sales rep for your coaching business. So there's going to be 4 parts: who to hire, where to find the talent, how to recruit, and the compensation plan. Let's get started with the who. Basically, what you want to do is identify who is your ICP or ISRP. Same thing as your ideal client profile. You want to have an ideal sales rep profile. Shout out to one of my mentors, Dean, to coin that term. But basically is you want to know who am I looking for on my team. Not every rep are going to be crushing it on all offers specifically. So you need to make sure and identify who's going to be the ideal reps for your company, for your offer. Basically, you want to look at who are my ideal clients. What's my prospect like? Is it weight loss offer for women over 40 years old? Is it young male entrepreneurs that want to get started into dropshipping? What's the age of my avatar? What's their background? What are their pain points? What are their goals? And who's going to be able to connect well with them? Then, are they walking the talk of the offer? If I go back here and we were selling weight loss for women over 40 years old, then likely an 18 years old kid, like male rep, is not going to perform as well if we compare equal skill as probably someone that resonates a bit more with the ICP, older woman that lost some weight as well or had some success in similar situation that is around the same age as well. Someone that walks the offer, if it's a fitness offer, male, female, doesn't matter. The rep is overweight, does not take care of their health, never worked out. There's incongruency between the rep and what he's selling in the transformation here because he's not walking the walk of the offer. Age as well. Again, you sell to super sophisticated investors that are over their 50s, they're like multi-millionaires. Very likely it's going to be more challenging for a younger rep to resonate well with them, build rapport, and get respected on their calls. If you have a stud, absolutely, but like likely the person that is going to succeed well in this offer is going to be an older demographic of sales rep. This is just a few examples. What's the experience of the reps before? Do they have some background in either your niche or have they been in the shoes of the prospect before so they can resonate well with them? Not every sales rep are going to do very well for your offer. If someone has crushed it on a biz op or selling B2B services, they're potentially not going to do very well with B2C clients. It does not mean they're going to do well because it's a similar sales process, but it's just different. Again, not every rep that are crushing on one offer are going to do well on the other one. Now, the other thing you could do is look at your current top performers on your team. What do they look like? What do they have in common? What's their age? Are they mainly male, females? Do they have a background, for example, military and sports? What was their previous career? Does it have to do anything with your niche? If you have an agency selling Amazon marketing services, then maybe your top reps are going to be people that have some background in Amazon in some capacity or in e-com as well, because they understand a bit more the niche, they understand the prospect, the pain point, the business. Nothing of that cannot be taught, but likely out of the gate, they're going to be a better top performer too. Again, identifying like who are the people that are performing on your offers. And if they're not, then asking yourself those questions and go more along those lines for your hires as well is going to help a lot. Like I have a company I work with, our reps are over 40 years old on there. I would not hire a younger rep on that offer just because the B2B offer, the demographic is a lot older. I'd say average age is probably like 40, 50 years old. Type A bit more like direct sell, business owners kind of vibe. And I'm not going to hire out of the gate a kid that has just sold like biz op. For that offer, I'm going to be looking for someone a bit more mature with a bit more life experience, ideally some business experience as well, so that it can resonate more with the avatar, have more posture as well. So that's just a concrete example, right? Then what you want to look for is their character traits. Super important, more than experience from my experience. Someone that's hungry, that's coachable, that's a strong communicator because sales can handle pressure. They have a high EQ, so emotional intelligence, and high IQ. This is more important if you're selling something complex, maybe a B2B solution, maybe super sophisticated like investor kind of prospects. So not as relevant. This one is better since we're dealing with people. They have to be able to read the room, read people very well, and that requires a good EQ. IQ can definitely help depending on the offer as well. As far as experience that I'm looking for setters, not necessarily required to have industry specific experience. Of course, can help, but it's not like mandatory. This is for all role. Ideally, you want high work ethic, but for setters even more because like the setter role is a grind. It's a volume game. They're going to get no's. They're going to make less money. They're going to get a lot more no's and hung up on people not picking up. They just hear the dialer the whole day to have a few convos. So they have to be like really driven, really organized. They have to have a high work ethic. I haven't seen that many older setter profiles that do well and last. What I've seen is usually someone that's a bit younger. They have less financial responsibilities in life. They're kind of like in that grind phase. For setters, like that's a really good profile. It's just what I've seen is like older people will want to grow faster out of the role, likely have more financial responsibilities, so they cannot handle as much the lower income or maybe the more volatility that can come with a setter role typically. That's for the setters. For the closers, ideally some relevant niche experience, but not mandatory. The more sophisticated the prospects are, the better. If something is like super niche, prospects are like very knowledgeable, it's gonna be tough if you come out and you don't have that context, you don't have that background and perform out of the gate, truthfully. Strong leadership, super important to be able to lead calls, confidence in themselves. They have some closing and sales experience. Depends on the roles, but ideally someone has above $500K to $1 million in closed revenue in the high ticket space. That's what I look for in closers. And again, potentially I would consider someone lower if I have some call recordings are really good and they come from reference that I trust. That's for the experience side of things. Now, where do you find the talent? Multiple places. Okay, so there's a lot of places where you can find the talent. I'll give you my favorite as well, but basically where you can find one, you can headhunt existing reps that are crushing it. For that, you need to know reps that are crushing it and you need to know that they're crushing it as well. That's number one. And in order to do that, you need to have a good offer, a good opportunity, because if they are crushing it somewhere, then in order to leave that place, you need to have a good place, a good vehicle, a good home for them to sell and make good commissions. Otherwise, they're not going to leave their spot. Your audience as well, depending on how big your audience is, whether email list, followers, subscribers on YouTube, and your database of people that maybe have booked sales calls haven't bought. So that is a great place as well to blast people or bought into either. If they're following you, they're either bought into you, likely interested, or bought into the vehicle of what you have, what you offer as services, or the industry that you're in. They're already like closed on one of those two at least, very likely, or potentially the two of those. Current clients, so people that are in your audience and that use your services, gotten results, those are great. Typically, they're not going to be the best from a skill set perspective, but their conviction and their buy-in is like really high. And I've seen a lot of times people with really high conviction, really strong buy-in, even though they're not the best skill set wise, can really like do well in a company. Referrals from either your network or reps on your team. What I've found is a lot of like the really good reps, they know a lot of really good reps. They're friends with really good reps or they've been on teams with them. Always a good place as far as that goes, but you need to have really good reps in order to do that, or have people that know a lot of them. That's another one. I've never used those, but I've heard great things about running ads. Typically LinkedIn and Indeed, from what I've heard, it's a lot of volume, not a lot of quality. I've seen a lot of ads as well, and I've heard like the hires can be pretty cheap on Meta. I've heard people get results like and pay a few $100s per hire, which is really not bad. The barrier to entry here, you need to have a dialed in funnel, ads, copy, know how to run ads, or you hire someone to do that on your team. That's another route. And then you can pay a recruiter, which recruiters can range anywhere from like 1,500, 2K on the lower end, and then all the way up to 5, 6, 10K per hire on the higher end. And that can be a great avenue at your own risk, depending on the quality of the recruiter. And then what can happen after they place the person, if they have a 30-day guarantee, for example, they could go and take that person and resell it to someone else after. That's something that can happen. My top picks are usually headhunting reps. I have a good network of reps. I know a lot of reps that know a lot of reps too. Tapping in my networks, referrals, headhunting current reps. You need to have a really good offer to be able to do that, to pull them from somewhere else. That's a good route. Current clients, that's another really good avenue I've had great success with. They are really convicted in the offer. They can be a living testimonial as well of the programs. What better on a sales call than to speak from your experience using the services? Some people lie about this and they say, oh, I got this results using it. But if you can have someone that actually did that, and by the way, I would never recommend lying on the sales calls about that. People can smell through that and it's just not ethical as well. That's never something I would tolerate anyone on my teams do. But if you can have someone that is a living testimonial from using it, this can be solid. So, and then you can just teach them the skills on top of that. Your audience already bought into you and what you do. So that can be another great place. They're already following you. That's a great place to tap into. And then referrals, harder if you don't know a lot of people, but that can be a great spot. My top two that I've used the most are those two here, dependent on you knowing a lot of reps, but that's what I've been doing the past 5 years. I have a pretty big network as far as that goes. That's for where to find the talent. Now the part 3 is how to recruit, hire. What's the full funnel breakdown? Talent acquisition has to be treated like client acquisition. It's the same process. It's a sales process as well. So you look at the funnel, it's traffic. We run the traffic to an application. The application then takes takes us to the skill assessment. So we'll assess their skill set. Then we have interviews with the people that we want to interview that are the best out of all the ones that applied and that we reviewed their skills as well. And then we extend the offer and then we onboard them on the offer. Traffic, it's basically the where to find the talents. Now, where do you push that traffic? This is where we push it to the application, but this is marketing. How do you get traffic? You need to have views. And what do people view? Typically is you'll make a post, depending if it's a story, a post, if it's an ad, but you'll have a bit of a breakdown. What's the offer? What's the OTEs? What's the comp plan? How big is the company? The landing page, like basically it's just kind of the ad, right? Yeah, it's like what are the OTEs? What's the price point? What's the offer, industry, and target income? And you have that listed out in bullet points so that people can see if that's something they're interested in or not. Again, this is an ad. A lot of people will fake OTEs and numbers to attract talent. I highly advise against it. What's going to happen is once they join your company, they're just going to leave. So I don't recommend this, but that's for the traffic piece. If you do the headhunting, then that's your offer. Hey, I'm hiring for an offer. What's the offer? What's the ticket? What are the current reps in the team doing? And what's the vision for that person in the company? You have to sell them on the opportunity. If it's a story, post, or an email, then you outline the role, responsibilities, what's the target income, what are the perks of joining the team, and you sell people on wanting to apply to the job. And as a traffic application, that's kind of like a type form. It can be like in the sales funnel, the opt-in, right? But it's a long application. The biggest thing with the application is like, how can I get the most out of people while doing the least? How can I only spend time with people who are actually going to be worth my time? That's the goal of the application, is just to narrow that so it can be as leveraged as possible for you as the owner, as the manager, as the person that does the recruiting for your company, so that you can spend the time on the people that are worth it, the people that are most qualified. By the way, if you're doing 150K plus per month and you want to bring on a team to manage your entire sales side of your business, click the link below. Now back to the video. This is going to be a long form app. And the goal, again, is to give you as much information as possible before meeting the candidates. And what that's going to do too is, one, the people that are not real serious are going to see, oh shit, this is long. This is going to take a lot of time. I'm not interested, not going to do that. So they'll filter themselves out. Or you quickly, by looking at the applications, you can see who's good candidates, who's a low quality candidate, and then move on from there. The questions should reveal like what's their EQ, so emotional intelligence, what are some past results, what's their background, track record, sales philosophy, how did they go about sales. That can give you an idea of their framework or what they believe to be true in sales to see if that aligns or not with your company. Work ethic, what are their goals? What are they wanting to make? What do they need to be making? What's their background on the industry specific knowledge? Their goals, either financially or non-financial goals. What are their logistical availabilities as well, like time zone they can work in, how many hours they can work, those type of things. And then the biggest thing, the biggest filter is the loom at the bottom. That's going to weed out people that are not serious. And then also that's going to give you a chance to see people before you hop on a call with them to see, is this someone I can jive with? How do they sell themselves? How do they look like on camera? How do they sound like on camera? Do I want this person to represent my company? Do I want this person on my team? Yes or no? And typically within 5 to 30 seconds of a video, you'll know. Even if they have the best app, you'll know if this is it or not. In the video, I don't look as much as what they say in the video. I look at how they say things and all the nonverbal, I would say. And then after that, I look at what they say. I asked them to cover their experience, what attracted them about the role of the company, why we should hire them over someone else. You want to see how they sell themselves. So if they're not good at selling themselves, then how can they be good at selling a product? That's the idea here. How do they talk? How do they look, sound? And are they a culture fit? Can you see them mesh with the rest of the team? The goal is to get as many applications as possible, as high of quality of people as possible, basically. The more applications you have, the more leverage you have yourself. So you can pick and select, be selective about who you want to work with. And then also that gives you kind of that abundance mentality where you'll never run out of talent. And if someone is underperforming in your team, whatever, then you can always pull in your applications too. That's where the applications, okay? So as many leads as possible of the highest quality and intent as much as possible. That's the application. Don't be afraid to add friction. The more friction, the better. That means the people that actually pull through on it, they're going to be like super qualified essentially. Skill assessment from here, once they complete the application, this is to assess their skill set. So what you can do is you could either review some sales calls from their previous offers they sold. You can do a role play. You can do both. The goal is to evaluate what's their skill set, what's their logic, like how do they go about the call? Do they see like patterns, objections as they come up on the sales calls? How do they pre-handle them or do they let them go? What's their frame, their posture, areas they would need to improve on? What if you do bring them on, then you already know what are weak spots. I don't care about the outcome of the call, if it closed, if it was a set or not, but really it's focusing on the quality and the execution more than anything. I look at the structure, I look at the nonverbal. Personally, I prefer call reviews. It's higher leverage than a role play. You can do it on 2x, 1.5, you can do it on your own time, and you can ask multiple calls, and you can have calls from different offers as well. And it's offers that they're already selling. If you think about it, they'll send you the best calls that they have. I want some recent ones too. People will send really good calls from like a year ago. No, I don't want that. I want a call from like last week or like in the last 2 weeks at most. And they're going to send you really good calls. So you can see like if he closed that deal or if he sent me that call, you feel this is a really good call. The rep is going to show himself or herself as best as possible. So you can really see like where they stand on a skill set perspective. That's for the skill assessment. That ideally, I'll do that before interviews. So I know if this is someone I want to get into or not. You can do it after the interviews too, as the final check. I think those can be swapped pretty nicely. Depends on you. For me, and I'll go on interviews in a sec, I prefer having interviews with people I would hire like 10 out of 10. And I'm just going to poke around the calls. I'm not going to listen to like full calls and plenty of them. I'll just listen to a few areas just to assess. And if at the end of the day, I'm like torn between 2 to 3 hires, then I'll go back to like the skill assessment. Like, all right, let's see like who's better. I'll think of the interviews as well, and I'll look at the calls. That's what the skill assessment. For the interviews, many things here. Basically, there's group and there's individual interviews. There's no right or wrong. There's multiple ways to skin the cat here. Depending on the volume of hires you have, I'd recommend if you have a lot of volume, do group first, and you can constantly do group interviews. And then if you have less volume of apps and hires to do, then you could just do like individual. I read the app, I look at the calls, and I know, okay, I can move forward with that person. And the interview is like vibe check. It's just making sure expectations are set and see who I want to go with. If you have more volume or you have a lot of candidates that you're not sure about, then you can have the group as the first filter, and then you do like the one-on-ones after. So that's just to give my added context there. The goal of the group is just to filter who you'd want to meet with one-on-one essentially. So that's the goal of the group interview. It's like a speed dating, as many people as possible, as efficiently as possible for your time. So it's really high leverage. You have 1 hour or 40, 45 minutes, even 30, you can rush it, but I'd see like 45 to 60 minutes if you have a lot of people in that group interview, and you can kind of speed date with a lot of people versus if you do interviews like 15, 30 minutes, you can't meet as many people as that. I would not recommend groups above 8 to 12 people. You would not have enough time to meet with everyone or talk to everyone. I know some people that do group interviews of like 50 people or like 30 people, but I don't see the point, honestly. I would rather have like 8 to 12 really qualified people in a group interview. Some that I'm like, okay, I could see myself working with that person. I could see that person working out. Then having like 30 and have a bunch of like looky-loos on there. One-on-one interviews, rapid fires, and then you can just talk and ask more questions to people that you're most intrigued in. You don't need to talk to everyone. If you see someone and you know like, okay, yeah, I don't need to ask questions to that person because maybe they're distracted, whatever, you can boot them off the interview if you want at that stage, and that's going to set the tone, or you can just like skip them and ask questions to only the people that you want to actually talk to. That can help when you're hiring for a lot of people. The goal is to pressure test like EQ, and what I'm going to look for mainly is like their confidence, how quickly they can think on their feet, how articulate they are as well, like how they talk, how they look like, their energy, do they seem coachable, do they seem a culture fit with my organization, with my prospect, with the other members of my team, do they have industry specific knowledge or experience, and I look for any red flags as well. As far as individual interview, if we're going straight from skill assessment to one-on-one, I'd vet harder in the skill assessment and the applications. Maybe you go back and forth, you text and you ask a few questions before you decide if you meet one-on-one. And then I'd just meet with a few hand-pick, hand-select people if I don't have the group interview, so that all those people I'm meeting with on interviews, I'm like almost close I would hire so I could save my time. If we meet one-on-one directly, it's kind of like a two-call close. I'm not gonna like over ask. Let's say I met you in a group interview, ask some questions, I have some notes on you. I'm not gonna like ask you the same questions in the one-on-one. If you go straight to one-on-one, I'm gonna ask you more questions that I would have asked in the group interview, basically. So it's gonna be a bit more thorough. If we did the group interview, then I'll just dig on some of the things you mentioned in the group interview. Or if everything was clear, then I'll ask other questions, which is gonna be more like culture fit, expectations, on making sure there's alignment and we're almost moved forward. And if you haven't had the group interview, then you can expand on the application, questions and answers they gave, and dig further. And it's going to be mainly like behavioral questions just to assess how they would do in certain situation, what happened the last time they had a dip, like how do they react, how do they handle pressure, and just getting to know them personally as well, just see if there's a fit. That's where the interviews. Once we had the interviews, then it's time to make an offer. You extend the offer to the person you want to bring on. It's like, hey, I want to bring you on, ready to get started basically. And you'll be surprised, even though you're like, oh, this person is like solid, like they want to join us, then you'll have some people decline, maybe to get another offer, those kind of things. You extend the offer quickly, they accept it or they don't. And then if they don't, then you move to the next candidate. If they do, awesome. You move to hire them, you bring them on board essentially. From there, you hire / you on board. Personally, I really like the rule of two. What I mean by that, you hire two people, even if you need one person for the role. Again, that's in case one doesn't work out, especially if you're like early stage, you don't have a lot of reps on, or maybe you're ramping very fast. But always hire in pairs. In case one doesn't work out, maybe doesn't ramp up fast enough, or just doesn't make it through ramp up and onboarding, meeting KPI. Maybe they leave during the onboarding. That can happen too. People are like really flaky, and you can vet as hard as you want on the interview process. It's still going to happen. So you want to edge risk. So I really like that rule, especially when you have a lower size team, lower volume team, because if you have just one rep on your team, you have more risk. If they're sick, they leave, they die, then you're in trouble. Versus if you have already like 10 reps, one more, one less, it's not going to like change too much. But if you want to scale aggressively, then it's always best that way. And a bonus step for the hiring process, you want to build a bench. Always want to be recruiting even when you're not hiring. What does that mean? Even if you don't have a spot open in your team, you always want to be recruiting, having interviews, having applications, people fill out apps that you can always be in a safe spot. Highly recommend you always have a few people ready to go that you can just pull from your bench. Either they're an app that you haven't interviewed yet. Ideally, they're people you interviewed and you really liked and you gave the job to like the first two, and then you had 3, 4, 5 that you interviewed that you would still have hired, but you haven't brought on yet. So you just keep in touch with them, keep them warm, a lead that's on the fence of joining and you have a follow-up with. Keep them warm, keep them updated, send them some material in the meantime so that they can maybe learn about the offer, some sales calls, things like that, so that you could show that you're interested. And then if things change, you need an extra rep, maybe someone leaves, then you can reach out and be like, hey, we're ready to go. I'm ready to get started with us. And then you bring them on board. Again, you want to have 3 to 5 because maybe you go to your next one and they're not available anymore, they're not interested anymore, then you have to go to the other person as well. And having a bench gives you leverage because if your current reps on your team are underperforming, maybe marketing ramps or someone leaves, then you edge the risk of like, fuck, okay, now I have to go through the hiring process because like that whole process I've laid out can take anywhere from 1 to 3 weeks, depending on the roles, depending on how tight you are in your schedule or not. Like I'd rather hire slow and have the right people than just like hire, churn. Typically I see like it's 1 to 2 weeks from the start of having applications to having the interviews and bringing someone on board. You want to make sure that you have some people so that you can remove that 1 or 2 weeks and you feel good, you feel in a good spot with your current team and current capacity too. That's for the how to recruit. And that's part of the compensation. So as far as the compensation, it's going to depend on the acquisition funnel, the structure as well. Okay, the economics of the business, the ticket size, the price points. You want to create a comp plan based on the target earnings of the setters, the closers. You want to make sure that they can make a good income and also it matches and fits the goals of the company, the cost, the economics, if it's a done for you service versus if it's a SaaS versus if it's info product. The margins on the delivery, on the fulfillment, the service is going to be very different. So what you can afford to pay is going to also be different. So you have to keep that in mind. I go a bit broad here in the explanations, and this is going to be mainly for info service-based businesses. But again, it depends on what you sell, your ticket, and all those things. For the closers / AE, the on-target earning, what we look for at a minimum, it needs to be like 80K plus. Otherwise, it's going to be tough to attract talent, all the way up to 400K plus per year based on the performance. I know this is broad, depends on your ticket size, depends on the volume of your offer. It's going to be tough to have someone for less than 80K a year, which 80K a year would be average 80 divided by 12 would be about 6.6K. So lower than that, it's going to be tough to have someone really solid. And higher than that, maybe your comp plan is too high or you have like a really good stud as well on your team. The average people on your team with the comp plan should be able to hit like anywhere from 8 to 16K per month, which would be 100 to 200K a year consistently, comfortably. For setters, the minimum would be like 48K to 180K plus per year based on performance. 180K plus would be really high. I don't know many setters hitting that. It's the same thing as 400K. I don't know many closers hitting that. I just put it as a bracket. If you have setters making more than that, either they're savage or you're like overpaying, I think. Average should be able to hit 48K to 84K, 4 to 7K per month. Lower than that, it's going to be tough to retain top talent, and higher than 7K, then they're really good. Again, this is average. If people are hitting KPI or like their own average team, your top setter should be able to comfortably hit 8 to 10, 12K if like they're really good and you have a dialed in operation and offer. As far as closers, industry average is 10% of cash collected in the info coaching space. Agency is a bit different. Agency services, I'm not going to get too much into that. You can have also a sliding scale if you want to go a bit more fancy and have more upside for reps based on a certain threshold of cash collected either per week or per month. You can go on the low end 8%, mid higher end you could go 12, and it can even go up to 15. Depends on your margins, your vehicle, your ticket, and all of that. So you can have the sliding scale that kind of resets every month or every week, depending if you do it on a weekly cash collected target or a monthly. Bonuses, many ways to do it. You want to make sure the bonuses incentivize the right behaviors. Okay, what I mean by that is you don't want to have a bonus that's based on just units, for example, because if you have just a bonus based on units, people are going to hack the comp plan. What I mean by that is if I'm a closer and I know I get certain bonuses threshold based on if I close 10, 20, 50 deals in a month, then what I'll do is I'll squeeze some deals in the month and I'll give the worst payment plans that are not good for the business, but at least I'll get some units in. So I don't collect a lot of cash, but I'll get some people in the door. And you want to make sure it's aligned with the behaviors you want as a company, which is to collect cash, close deals as well, and be profitable. You can do it on certain milestones, but what I would do is I would always recommend you add contingencies or qualifiers so that reps don't hack the comp plan. So I'll cover that. You could do it on every 50K collected a month, you get a $500 bonus, or you do it for every 100K collected a month, you get, this is where close again, you get a $1,000 bonus, which would equal an extra 1% essentially for those two, but per bracket. So at the end of the month, if they're at 40K and at 50K to get a bonus, then they'll squeeze in the extra miles to get that $500 bonus, for example. You can do it on every 10 deals closed, you get X bonus, and I would add contingencies, and then you can do it on, if they have PIFs, to get a $100 bonus on top of their regular commission. I'm just making this up, could be like 50 or it could be $500 per PIFs, depends on your ticket. If you have a 25K ticket or you have 3K ticket, then again, you adjust this accordingly. Adding contingencies can look like, in order to get those bonuses on $1,000 on every 10 deal closed, you need to keep and maintain cash to revenue ratio of at least 50%. Otherwise, you don't qualify for the bonuses, or maybe it's a minimum of cash collected per call book to make sure the company stays profitable at a certain like ROAS or KPI that you set. Those are contingencies. No need to add many, but just even, let's say this is your bonus structure, you add one of those, then that aligns the incentive. So you can't just squeeze in some deals on like really long payment plans. Otherwise, you don't get the bonus anyway. That's for the closers. For the setters, same principle apply. So there's many ways for the setters. You could do it either base plus percentage or just commission only. I'll cover the two. The two can work, but it just depends on your business and what you can afford and what's the opportunity at hand for the setters too. Base plus percentage, that can be good if your lead flow fluctuates. If you want more like full-time discipline and full-time like commitment and hours and more compliance on your admin, you want to lower the churn, and maybe your company is a bit newer, lower kind of revenue scale as well. So you want to create more stability for the income of the setters because they have a super important role. A lot of people think like, oh, my setters, I don't give a crap, I want top closers and stuff, but the setters is a really high leverage role and can really help you increase your return on advertising and on marketing and grow your business as well if you have a really dialed in setter team. But in order to do that, we have to pay. As far as like the base, think of the OTEs. That's what it comes down to. But the base can go anywhere from $500 to $2,500 per month, and then 2 to 5% of the cash collected as cash is collected. I haven't seen too many people get $2,500 base plus 5%. Okay, this would be high, but you get the scenario. The higher the base, the lower the percentage. The lower the base, the higher the percentage. All comes down to the OTEs. Also, you don't want to have a too high of a base because the reps are going to stay comfortable. If a rep is comfortable making like 3K and you have a $2,500 base, they're not going to be hungry to go and collect cash and close more deals and do more activities to get more cash. So that's for the base plus percentage. For commission only, I would do that more if the lead flow is really predictable, consistent. You really have a good opportunity at hand. You're a bit more matured and predictable as far as a business. Calendar is always full, or pipelines are always full of leads. Maybe your setters don't need as much financial securities. They're like, because you have a younger demographic, you have a younger team, and they're really hungry. Maybe they come from overseas as well and they have really good English. They're happy with like 2 or 3 grand a month as you're ramping up and growing the company. Again, different scenarios. In that scenario, we could do anywhere from 3 to 5%. I've seen higher than that as well, up to like 7, 8 or a sliding scale, but depends on your scenario. That is the most common. Again, based on the target earnings. The bonuses, similar to the closers, you want to incentivize the right behaviors. Can be on the total sets, can be on cash collected milestones, total close sets, etc. You just make sure you add contingencies so that it aligns with the goals of the company and that the comp plan does not get hacked per se. Could be as a minimum you need X amount, or your cash percentage, maybe your show rate needs to be this. Maybe if it's on total sets, then your show rate and your close rate needs to be a certain KPI. Even though they don't control the close rate, they do if they put lower quality prospects on the calendar and they do a deeper discovery in their calls. There could be many ways. Oh, not overcomplicate this, but just had many contingencies to make sure you're in a good spot there. That's everything for this video. So if you take anything away from this video, let it be this, okay? Great sales teams are not built by luck. They're built by standards, structure, fast feedback loop. So if you hire correctly on the front end, everything else downstream becomes easier. The onboarding, the coaching, performance management, and scaling the revenue. So if you're doing 150K plus per month and you want us to handle all the recruiting, the team building, and the management, click the link below. We're gonna install our complete sales infrastructure so you never have to interview or manage another rep yourself again.